Greetings and welcome to SPCA Stories, a brand new podcast brought to you by SPCA Monterey County, specifically from the Claire Jacobson Learning Center here on our campus in beautiful Salinas, California. I hope you're doing very well. If you are listening to this, we assume that you are someone who cares very deeply about animals. Maybe you're curious about the world of animal welfare, maybe specifically about SPCA Monterey County. Maybe you're one of our amazing volunteers or our remarkable staff or board of directors, a supporter, a donor. Well, whoever you are, we want you to know that this is for everyone who loves animals. And we hope that this podcast will find its way far and wide, not just in Monterey County. We want to share ideas, to inspire, and of course, be inspired. We want to know what you want to know about us. So at the end of this episode, I will include some information on how you can contact us. By the way, I am Dawn Fenton, SPCA Monterey County Content and Education Manager. I've been with SPCA Monterey County for 16 years. I love this organization with all of my heart, and I have really been wanting to share who we are, what we do, and the people who do this amazing work for a really long time. So I am thrilled to be your host. Here at SPCA Monterey County, we provide a wide scope of services to the animals and people in our community. And in this first episode, we begin with SPCA President and CEO, Scott Delucchi. Now remember, this is only the beginning. Just a quick note to some of our more sensitive listeners. We will occasionally discuss delicate subjects such as the need to surrender a beloved pet, euthanasia, and other sensitive topics that are a part of the animal welfare world. So please take care while listening. Hi, Scott.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey, Dawn. Good. How you doing?
I'm great. Good. So what is your title?
Title, President and CEO. And for people maybe thinking, wow, that sounds like a fancy title. Years ago, leaders of nonprofits were called executive directors. And I don't know when it changed, maybe about 10, 15 years ago. But because we are like for-profits in some ways, or businesses in some ways, I think the idea was if I'm talking to my counterpart or talking to someone outside of the organization and they see president and CEO, they'll have an idea of what I do, maybe more so than if my title was executive director. So it's again, at some point that changed, and that's what it is.
Okay, so you're the top guy.
Top guy in a field with a lot of top women. But if I were to go to a workshop for CEOs in animal welfare, I'd be in the small minority. There are many more women all over in our field, and that's from top executive positions, it's volunteers, it's donors, it's special event attendees. We're just a field that draws more women. And I have thoughts on it. I think, maybe women are more compassionate, is, what I usually think. But
well, okay.
75% female.
Okay. Well, so it's interesting that you use the word compassionate because one of the things I like to do when I start these podcasts is I want to, of course, we're going to talk about the animals, but it's definitely, this is about the people who do the work. And I think with the word compassion, it starts at the top with organizations like ours. And I want to compliment you on the temperature that you've created here for us, because that's so important, because it does start at the top. Yeah. And the work that the people do here is amazing, and you've created a really safe space for us to express ourselves and to do what we need to do. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Right from the very beginning.
Oh, thank you. I like how you word it, creating the temperature.
Yeah.
And it's something that I didn't think a lot about before I got here, and I wasn't in this role in my last organization, and we'll probably touch on that. But I was in a different role. I wasn't the executive director or the CEO. And I remember the first week so well, where it was the end of the day, 5:00, and people start filing out. I thought, well, that's interesting. That's not what I saw in the Bay Area. And I thought, well, I have as much of a say in that as anybody else. And I thought, I really like that. I really like that people have balance here. And that's one of the first things I noticed. One of the first differences between here and the San Francisco Bay Area. is that people do have a better work-life balance. And I'm all for people working really hard. At the end of the day, go home and do something completely different. And that's not, I can't fault anybody who's in our field that likes to watch Animal Planet when they get home, or likes to foster, but I also think people need a break. It's just really emotional work. And
it is.
What I've seen is the people that do it 24/7, they just get burned out quickly. I want to go home and hang out with my kids, or watch some mindless TV with my wife, or work out, or do something not related to animals at all. I don't want to read animal books a lot. I think that's the best way to be fresh, and is to have some balance like that.
Well, I agree. And I think what happens when people burn out is you lose really good people, because the work is emotional. And the people who work, who have these hearts, who do the work, it's very, very easy for it to get overwhelming and for it to become too much. And then we lose really wonderful, committed people. And we don't want to do that. So again, I want to thank you for setting the tone and creating the temperature, because I think that's important. So, so going down a different road. So if you're at a party, let's say, or you're meeting somebody for the first time, how do you describe SPCA Monterey County? It doesn't have to be a work-related thing. Just you're meeting someone for the first time, and they're like, "Hey, Scott, what do you do?"
Well, we're pretty fortunate in that just that term alone, most people have an idea of what we do, but most people think it's dogs and cats. So what I typically say is, you've heard of an SPCA. You know what SPCAs do. It's dogs and cats. It's adoptions. And the thing that makes our SPCA different is our scope is much wider than that. So again, I'm not saying there are good guys or bad guys in our field. It's just a different focus, and ours happens to be wider. So we're dealing with dogs and cats, but that's only half of what we're dealing with. We're taking in all the other small animals. It's exotic pets that, ones that people can buy in pet stores that aren't traditional animals. Barn animals, horses and chickens and pigs and donkeys and miniature donkeys and all the things we get in our barn. And then all of our areas, sick and injured wildlife. And really, there aren't many shelters in the entire United States that have that focus, that wide of a focus. So I start again with, what an SPCA is, and here's what makes us special and different.
Absolutely. So how long have you been with us?
It'll be 9 years. Wait, is that right? Yeah, it would be 9 years. 9 years in June.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Crazy.
So
only like a little over a year in dog years. So.
So we touched on this a little. What did you do before?
So I had a role. I was always part of the senior management team at an organization that was very much like ours, maybe a little bit bigger, but had a wide scope like that. And I oversaw the media and the PR, the adoption program, education, the benefit shop, the behavior team, the cruelty investigation, all the animal control. So it's like part of the day-to-day operations. And maybe, 40 or 50 employees out of the 100 or so that were there. So a role kind of like what maybe a few different people here do. And that's one of the things that we've seen. It's really hard to find someone at another SPCA that has a job exactly like yours, because we're all a little bit different.
Right. We all kind of wear different hats, and it's probably different everywhere you go. So back to that party. What, how would you describe what you do to someone who has no idea?
Overseeing the day-to-day operations, working with supporters. I explained that's a really big part of it, is that to do a lot, we have to bring in a lot. I mean, we have a budget that's a pretty big budget, but we have so many programs, and that's all paid for the most part, by donations. People say, "How is that funded? Don't you get a lot of money from the government?" Or I say, "No, most of it's from individual donors."
Yes, we couldn't do what we do without donations and support. So
that's not easy, because there are incredible groups around here, not only in the animal welfare space, but there are great schools, there are churches, there are kids groups, there are human services groups, and Monterey County has so many good nonprofits. So just, getting out and meeting a lot of people and telling them our story and having them understand what we do.
Have you always had animals? Have animals always been a part of your life?
Yeah, we had, I have to tell one story. The first dog we ever had, it was probably maybe a good story to share because I wasn't ready for a dog. And it was a Dalmatian. My dad was a firefighter, and maybe he thought, that's the kind of dog that a firefighter should get for the family. And I was a little guy, and I'm probably really rough, with little Clancy, and our family had to rehome her.
Oh.
And we, that's why I try to have compassion for other people who have situations that don't work out. And I think we ended up, I think it went to our vet who knew somebody else who was looking. So that was what happened with Clancy. So I wasn't ready. A few years later, we got another dog. We always had dogs, fish, occasionally. But yeah, so always had them. And you hear from other people, even people who work here, who said, we weren't allowed to have pets. And I was like, wow, that's really sad. Then I just took that for granted.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they live, though. I mean, I'll talk to my mom about this, and she'll say, I feel so bad that, Ginger was in the garage most of the time, and that's a dog that was, we had most of my childhood. Mm-hmm. I always tell her, I was like, Mom, that's how most dogs live. That just things have changed. Mm-hmm. Dogs were in the garage or in the backyard, and that's where they spend a lot of their time. Now dogs they're in the house and in the beds and under the covers,
right.
Which I think it's a great development. But I don't think she shouldn't feel bad. But because she's familiar with my work, she says, I wish we'd have done things differently.
So what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be the next third baseman for the Giants. Through high school, played baseball through high school, played baseball in college, and was in a program that was incredibly competitive and had a lot of my college paid for that. But then there were a lot of really good players, and I just, freshman year, maybe towards sophomore year, and definitely in junior year, I knew that wasn't going to happen. So started thinking about other things after that. I was thinking about, I had an internship with a TV station and thought about maybe sportscasting, and I tried that. Only tried that as an intern for a while, and thought, oh my God, it makes me nervous as an intern watching what they do and the fast pace. And I thought, and I also, sports had been a big part of my life through my childhood, through end of college. And I thought, I don't want to be that guy who's like only sports all the time. So there's more that's out there than just sports.
So how did you fall into animal welfare?
That's a really good story. So senior year of college, I was renting a house with 3 other friends, and we talked about getting a dog and didn't even check with the landlord yet. So we didn't even know all about that process. And fortunately, we were responsible enough to say, well, what's going to happen in June? We're all going to go. None of us knew what we were going to be doing after graduation. And we thought we're all going to be going different directions. Who's going to take the dog? And maybe this is not such a great idea. And I remember I was driving home during Christmas break, and I was listening to the radio, and there was a commercial for Canine Companions for Independence, CCC. So it's a group it was Sebastopol, so Sonoma County, and they were looking for people to be puppy socializers for 6 months. I thought, oh my God, this is perfect. And so these dogs will then live with people who have special needs. So everyone knows guide dogs for the blind, right? They're helping people who have that. Canine Companions for Independence is helping people with other issues, so mobility issues. They need help doing everything from answering doors to picking up telephones. So it was an opportunity to be a puppy socializer. And again, 6 months, thought perfect. We'll go until graduation. We go our separate ways. We return the dog. He's been socialized. We've done good work. We've lived with a dog. Be fantastic. Then we learned that there was an interview, which of course makes sense. And we thought, who in their right mind is going to pick 4 guys in college to socialize a dog? We all drove up together, and the person who interviewed us thought we were perfect. And we thought, we were expecting an experience very different. But she said, you have busy lives. You're going to be walking across campus. You're going to be going to classes. You're going to be going to supermarkets. You're going to be going to dorm parties. You're going to have people over at your house. We want this dog to be exposed to all that, seeing people on skateboards and bikes and different kinds of people. So they gave us the dog. They gave us the dog to socialize. We had her, and they had her. Her name was I.O., so the initials I.O. And it must have been like part of a serial number or I'm not sure where that name came from, but we thought that doesn't sound right. But we thought maybe it's not a great idea to change the name. Maybe we were given instructions. I can't even remember. But I was taking Italian at the time, and it was January when we got her. And the word for January in Italian is gennaio. And thought if her name was Io, that wouldn't be too confusing. So we got a really cool, European name for her, for this black lab, gennaio, the black lab. So we socialized her and did our thing, and then we had to return her, which was really sad. But I mean, it gave me a little insight into now what we see people to do who are fostering. It's they pour their heart into something, and then they have to say goodbye. But we know we did our job, and I think we did a pretty good job. So that was my introduction to animal welfare, Gennaio the lab.
And then you just decided to go from there?
Yeah, I guess from there, I was a teacher. So right after college, I went into that, teacher and high school administrator. So I was the admissions director for one school, and then went back to my old high school to teach and work in the administration, which was kind of a trip because a lot of my teachers were still there.
Wow.
So I was 22 and teaching seniors in high school.
Oh my goodness.
So it was creative writing and American literature. So I did that for 5 years, and it was just, I loved it. Getting to know the kids and the families. And now the kids, call them kids, I'm in my mid 50s and they're 50. So it feels more like peers, the people that I taught, that I'm friends with now. And I miss that part of it, but it was just, I don't know, the best feeling I had to describe it is, as I was doing it, I just thought, I'm not going to do this for my entire life. It's good for now. And I saw the other teachers who were at the school, they were just so dedicated and going to workshops and symposiums in the summer to better their careers. And I didn't feel like I would do that for my entire life.
Sure.
And then I saw, I really lucked into it to get into this field. I can't even remember if it was an ad. It may have been an ad in the paper, but it was for joining the management team of the local shelter where I grew up to oversee their education efforts and their outreach. And I thought, I've lived in this community my whole life. I didn't even know they had education efforts.
Wow.
I just thought it was like a lot of people. I thought it was the pound. It's where you go to surrender an animal, or if you've lost your dog, you go there, or maybe to adopt. I had no idea they were getting involved in legislation and advocacy efforts and visiting schools. And I thought, if I've lived here my whole life and I don't know about this, then I'm sure a lot of other people are in the same boat. So I applied and was hired, not knowing what I'd think of it, not knowing what I'd think about managing people or the place. I just fell in love with it. And that was 1997.
Wow.
I know.
What an exciting way to get into the biz.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Do you feel like maybe your life as a teacher and your experiences as a teacher, do you think that influences maybe your leadership style or the way you approach things?
I don't know. I think that's part of it. And I also had I had two examples on opposite ends for my first 17 years in this field. An executive director who was just not really good and not cut out for the work. So I saw, and didn't have the right style. And I saw kind of like a way to not do anything, which is valuable, seeing how someone is doing something wrong. And then just had a really good leader for the person who didn't work out was there for a couple of years and was able to work alongside someone for close to 15 years who was outstanding. And to me, that was like getting an advanced degree in nonprofit management. It was that valuable. So I think that influenced more than anything.
So was that would you consider that a mentor of yours?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to have, huh?
Yeah.
That's really good.
You want to hear a story on the media part? This was
yes.
Again, this is back. So one of my hats was media relations, and this is back in the day. I probably have to explain what it is, but I had to wear a pager. Do you know what a pager is?
I know what a pager is.
So I would get beeped if there was something, and I even asked somebody, like, what could be that important where media is going to want to call me? And they said, you'd be surprised if there are animal stories out there, whether it could be a dog attack, it could be some kind of a dramatic rescue. that they'll want to hear from the person who is at the shelter. So you're the spokesperson. That's one of the hats you're going to wear. So I said, all right, I'll wear the page here. And it was I was within the first couple months, and there were women that were walking on Sawyer Camp Trail in San Mateo, a popular walking trail, and they were attacked by a coyote.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm honest to God, I didn't know the difference between a coyote or a wolf or a bobcat at the time. And I remember having to drive up there and talk to the TV reporter who was there. And I just pulled him aside and I said, look, this is what I know. This is what I don't know. So don't embarrass both of us. Just give me some softballs. All right. So his first question was, and where was the woman bitten? And all these words are just reeling through my mind to like, what should I call it? And I said, in the buttocks. That was the first thing I ever said during a media interview. And it was, I want to say it was around the time that Forrest Gump was out. I bore a certain resemblance to Tom Hanks. And so I had all my friends, they were teasing me about that one. In the buttocks, because that was the phrase that he used when it was President Johnson wanted to know where he was injured. So they got great mileage out of that.
I am sure that they did. That's a great story.
So I know what a coyote is now. I know the difference between types of hawks, and I know lots of wildlife things just because I've been around some incredible people who do that work, and it's been part of both shelters.
Amazing. Why are you passionate about what you do?
I get to work with some people who are amazing, where we all get to make an impact every day. And I know a lot of people who are, I would say they're satisfied in their job, they're well paid, they're doing something kind of, maybe somewhat important. But I mean, to have an impact every single day, and it's not a cliche, it's really what happens here. And there aren't many people that can say that. I don't have to walk very far, to be inspired. When I drive in the morning, I'm pulling in, and volunteers have already been here for an hour. I'm waving to the volunteers who are walking dogs. When I get home at night, again, I try to stay off of social media, but every now and then I'll wander onto our, the Facebook group for our foster program. And I see those people doing work well after I'm at home, and they're doing work at night. But it's just pretty easy to walk around, and to see the different teams doing their work. And we are adopting out animals to people. Maybe it's going to be their very first pet, and it's going to be the animal that, this family is going to remember forever. Or it could be the person who's bringing in an animal to be euthanized because it's the end of life decision. And you see them walking in with an animal in their arms, and you and I know, what is happening. You can just tell when someone's walking in what's going on. And it's heart-wrenching, but that the person on the other side of that, our employee, is going to make that just a little bit easier.
Yes.
And it's going to have the right approach. But we just see it every day. It's just being able to make a positive impact every single day. And it's, again, I don't know many people that can say that.
It is remarkable how compassionate our employees are, our staff. And especially with what you mentioned, the end of life decisions, and I've heard and witnessed multiple occasions where our staff has been just genuinely warm and patient, and taking care of these people who are making a really difficult decision. And it's so, I'm blown away and feel so lucky to be involved with this organization and with people who have that kind of heart and commitment.
Absolutely. Heart and hustle. That's what I like to say about our staff.
So what do you wish people knew about us?
I wish we knew the scope, that they knew the scope. Again, people think dogs and cats. They don't know all that we do. I think there's still some people that maybe don't understand how many animals have a positive outcome. There are... and that probably comes from the fact that our average, this is a terrible term, but our average user, you think of a place like Starbucks, the average customer is there once a week. They know everything that happens. They know when the cup of coffee is raised by a nickel, or they have different flavors. People that come here, maybe their last experience with us was 15 years ago when they adopted. And the place looked very different. We've had all different people. We had different programs and a different philosophy. So they don't know our business all that well. And there's still a little bit of the leftover feeling of people know our name is SPCA, but they still think it's a pound. It's a place where a lot of animals come in and not a lot are going to be going home.
Right.
And there's still the feelings of animals having run out of time. People will say, you've gotten the question, how long do they get there? Do they get a month? Do they get a week? And it probably comes from a time when shelters were so overwhelmed. That's probably is what happened. Animals would, staff would have to make difficult decisions after every week on a certain day. These are the animals that wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to hold on to because they were out of space. So when I tell people that we're an open admission shelter, meaning we take in animals for every reason, whether they're young or old, different behavior issues, different medical issues. We don't limit our admission that way just to the animals that we know we can just turn around and adopt tomorrow. So we're taking in everything, and we're still finding a positive outcome for between 8 and 9 out of every 10 dogs and cats that come to us. And that blows people away.
Our doors are open to all animals. Yeah, it's remarkable. It is remarkable.
Yeah. It's also sad and overwhelming because having that approach means you're going to have to take in some that you can't find a positive outcome for.
Yes.
And then another thing I would want people to know is they'll say, well, do you work with other rescue groups? Because everyone's familiar with rescue groups, whether it's a breed specific one, lab rescue, or rescue groups for rabbits or cats. And what I always tell people is the small number of animals that we can't find a home for here because severe aggression or medical issues that are far advanced. There isn't really a rescue group around that is able to take that on. There isn't. And again, it's no fault. They can only take in what they have foster homes for. So there are challenges, but I feel, and I know our staff feels like there has to be one shelter in every community that's here for all the animals. And you just know that some of the work's going to be really, really hard.
What's the best part of your job?
Yeah, I think to me, it's the people. Everyone was saying, the best part must be you get to see a lot of animals. But I mean, to me, we're about people. We're here for animals, but we're about people first. We have to have the right people, and seeing so many incredible people that have come and gone. And our shelters like a lot that we do have some turnover in some of the areas, like the folks who are doing the day-to-day cleaning and feeding, the adoption counselors. That's not we call them customer care staff, but they're ones doing the adoptions. Not many of them want to be here for their entire career. So we end up with people in their 20s. Maybe they've started some school, some college, or they don't really know what they want to do. They've taken some time off, and then they move on. But we do come across amazing people. I still keep in touch with people that I met in this field more than 20 years ago. So just to me, it's special people.
What about the hardest part?
I think, and I try not to pay a ton of attention to it, but some social media things can get kind of nasty. Again, I try not to poke around too much because there are some wonderful things. I should say there are some wonderful things about it. A forum like Nextdoor, for example, that's one of the things where we see the best and the worst in people. The best, some animals that definitely would have ended up in shelters 15 years ago are now, someone finds a stray dog, posts that dog's photo on Nextdoor, and that dog is reunited with the owners within minutes sometimes, or hours. So it is wonderful there. The not so helpful parts are, I'll just give an example. Someone might post something, I found an injured wild animal and I don't know what to do. So I'll be at home. My wife will say, don't do it. Just don't do it. I say, no, this is an easy one, right? This is what could go wrong. So I'll post, and people, if I don't say who I am, maybe people recognize the name or can put me together with the SPCA. And I'll say, the SPCA has a wildlife center. If you could bring the animal in, that'd be fantastic. If you can't, we can have somebody go out and pick it up. won't hear a word from the person who posted, but there'll be 5 messages after that saying, I called you one time to take care of the rats in my attic and you guys wouldn't show up. Or I called one time because there was a dead skunk in the pool and you wouldn't come pick it up. I mean, neither of those things are what we do.
Right.
We're not pest control, but people think because it's wildlife related, it must be the SPCA. So I'll never know if the person who had the issue even saw my advice, but I'll hear from 5 other cranky people that bring up something that is not even related.
Or who had a negative experience and maybe it wasn't even with us, but they just assumed that we were, some other organization.
Yes.
So the highs and lows of social media for sure. It can be hard to swallow. And then, you try to explain and sometimes people don't want to understand. So that happens too.
Oh yeah. And some of it I can totally understand when people are bringing us animals in our intake area. We want to be transparent. So we tell people, just so you know, euthanasia is always a possibility. We have to tell people. I think there was a time when shelters probably didn't. They wanted everyone to think the outcome's going to be fine. Just don't worry about it. Shelters have moved away from that where they're more transparent. So we'll say that's a possibility. I think some people hear that and they hear euthanasia and they'll leave. And sometimes those are the people who post on social media saying, I brought my animal to the SPCA. He's getting euthanized tomorrow. Like where did that come from? That was never part of the conversation, but they just focused on that one word. So we control what we can control.
Yes, absolutely. And we are as transparent as we possibly can be. And that's, I think, all we can be. So we talked a little bit about, what you do when things get tough, like the self-care. We talked about work-life balance. But what do you do for self-care?
During the day, I love walking to the top of our property, and that's just a kind of a mind-clearing thing. It was really fun when we had a construction project here, so it was just one, it was keeping an eye on that, and then to get in a little bit of exercise. Yeah, just trying to do what I see our other staff members doing, and I know it can be hard for someone in my role to put the work down. And I take work home. I think about it. Sometimes I don't go to sleep all that well because I'm thinking of something at work. But, trying to work out, trying to get involved in the kids' activities, whether it's helping with a homework assignment or helping coach a sport. I like woodworking too. So, a couple different things, a couple outlets.
What do you think we can do better? That's a big, wide question, I know. Yeah.
I always think we can do everything better. To me, we have to have that approach. Think about the interactions we have with people who maybe are having a hard day, have a little more empathy than someone who's found, that stray animal. Just to remember to say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing that. That can be hard with a shelter that is really crowded, or to see when someone has exhausted all their options and they're bringing an animal in. I think so. Just to have empathy in general, I think is something we can do better. The big picture question for us is, I think as an organization, how we can serve the entire county. And we're located in a spot it's pretty centrally located. We have, the peninsula to the west of us. We're in Salinas, but our county is huge. And there are communities in the South County that can't do some of the things that other people can because of where we're located. Transportation is definitely a hurdle.
Sure.
So just to give an example, our spay-neuter clinic, people know that we're here, but to take advantage of that service, it's really 4 separate hour-long trips. Say if someone lives in King City, they've got to drop their animal off in the morning. Unless they want to hang out here all day, we are spread out. They would have to go home, then they come back here to pick up their animal in the afternoon, then they drive home again. 4 different hour-long trips. And that is not just that program. It could be dog training classes, same thing. Animal camp, pretty hard to have a child attend animal camp when they're that far away, even to adopt or to surrender.
Right.
We're not always the most convenient. So to find a way to take the most essential things that we're doing now and make that more available to our entire county. That is a big question for us. It would be a big direction, and we're just taking baby steps right now to look into that.
Scott, one of the things I'm crossing my fingers with this podcast is that it's not just Monterey County people who listen. I'm hoping that maybe it'll reach further out. I would love it if someone in New York or somewhere would listen, and that's an animal lover or interested in a career, or is just interested in what we're doing here. That's one of my hopes, is that we could get feedback and help and create relationships with other organizations or with people who live in other places to see how they're doing things.
We've done a bit of that. I mean, we're just in exploring the South County shelter option. We visited and we're starting to work with an architect. It sounds further along than we actually are. They're just helping us with what they call schematic design. So trying to put together what a campus could look like and what pieces are next to each other. Where is the adoption counter in relation to where the dogs are held, and where is the area where you want to educate kids or maybe have a dog training class, or where's the staff break room. So we're just doing that really preliminary work with them. But we've had them visit with us shelters from outside of our county just to get other ideas. Many animal shelters that are built each year, they're all doing things that are a little bit better than what happened before them. So we feel like we can get great ideas from the materials that are used, to the way the spaces are envisioned, to how the staff use the facility, how the community sees it and interacts with the staff. There's some fun things happening in our field. And the days of a pound that is made from cinder block and chain link are long gone. Thank goodness. That's how they were all built. If someone hasn't been to a shelter in 10 years or 15 years, they should visit one. Just take some time. And so if this message, again, is getting out to people outside of our area, look up the shelter in your own area and see it's probably not what you had in mind. And that's a great thing. Our field has had so many advancements, and that's one of the big ones, is the physical spaces are very different than they were a couple decades ago.
So what are your wishes for animal welfare?
One of the big ones is, and I don't know, I hope this happens in my lifetime, is that we can see a day where we have non-surgical sterilization. That's one of the big things that's out there, is having to spay or neuter a dog or cat without surgery. It's just a very expensive, time-consuming procedure that, you're putting an animal under anesthesia. You have to have a veterinarian, you have to have a vet tech and a vet assistant, and you're monitoring them after surgery. It's at the heart of our mission. It's work we would never consider not doing, and we're doing far more of it every year than we did the year before. Last year was our record year, 7,400 surgeries. This year we're going to surpass 8,000 probably. And that gets at the root of the issues with overpopulation. So it's work we would never consider not doing. If it can be done without surgery, it's just a game changer for all shelters.
Yes, for sure.
It would mean we're not going out of business. It would just, we use that space differently. We would still provide vaccinations, or maybe then we're getting into more routine vet care for people who don't have the funds for a private vet. So there's a lot of work that's happening in that area. It's just not there yet.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was on the horizon, some horizon. That's great.
It's going to be a great day. We love having vets around, and we're going to need them. That's another thing we haven't even touched on, just the shortage of vets throughout the country for all shelters. And some of them have been in a really tough spot where they maybe, if it's a huge organization, they have 10 vets and they lose one, they probably don't feel it that much. Mm-hmm. Some shelters have one vet who's doing everything. And when that person leaves, things just shut down. Sure. Then you're having someone else providing the best care they can for the animals that are in the shelter. You're not doing any spay and neuter unless you're bringing in someone from the outside. So, I know shelters that have lost vets that have then been without them for a couple of years because it's really hard. It's hard to recruit. The work can be monotonous. Doing the spay neuter surgeries every day, it's physically taxing. And then working with shelter animals is maybe not everyone's cup of tea either, because in private practice, you're talking to owners and you're seeing a lot of healthy animals. In a shelter setting, you can't ask the owners. So you're doing you need vets who are very confident and very experienced, who can assess things, and they're not afraid to be wrong. They are sometimes. and they don't have owners they can talk to. So they're having to look at other cues and talking to staff, and that's a big issue in our field. Unfortunately, we had 2 vets on staff, and we only had the budget for 2, but we hired a 3rd and went beyond our budget because it's that important. And we thought we can't not do that. And that's what led to our record year with spay and neuter. Over a little bit in the staff salary line, but it's far more important to have the spay neuter number that just jumps off, because it can't be, nothing we do can be more important than that.
Absolutely.
A lot of things are really important, but it's hard to find something more important than that.
Is there a question that you wish I had asked you?
You didn't ask me how long I'm going to do this.
Yeah, how long are you going to do this?
I don't know. Well, let's see. One child, one of our kids is in 8th grade. One is a junior in high school. So thinking about college for them, I don't think I'm going to retire anytime soon. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like it, and I don't think I can. So that kind of is what drives that. But I also can't imagine being retired either. There's just plenty to do here. There hasn't been a slow day, and we've always had something that was for us the next big thing. For a while, it was really expanding our spay neuter work and having the vet staff to do that. Then it was addressing our needs with all the dogs that come to us that need special care. We created a special building for that this past year. Remodeling our learning center just to make it, an even better gathering place. So we had that project, and coming up, we're going to be going solar. So there's, these buildings that I'm looking out at, they're going to have a lot of solar panels on them starting in a few weeks, actually.
That's great.
That starts. We're looking at renovating the largest flight aviary we have in wildlife. So things that get a lot of use, they wear out. I know you have to replace them. Mm-hmm. So it feels like there's always a project. Our work it may change, whether it's the non-surgical sterilization, there could be some other development. We're still going to be here. Because we're the kind of organization, we touch so many things and have so many facets. We may see fewer animals coming to us, which would be great. But we're still going to be here. We would just shift and do more of something else that's important. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really answer the question other than it's going to be a while.
That's okay.
Yeah, and I hope. It's just the way I feel. We are fortunate. I can't knock retired people. They are some of our very best volunteers. I think some people, they plan for that day, yes, and they have their first couple months or maybe even the first couple of years mapped out in terms of what they want to do, and they're checking things off their bucket list, and then they wake up one day and they say, I'm not responsible for anything. I used to be important. I had something that I cared about getting up for, and I was responsible and I was contributing, and I don't have that anymore. And we are here for them. And those people can have a sense of purpose right here. And it's some of the volunteers who are here almost as much as our paid staff, and they're fantastic. They've lived a little. They don't, they're not getting caught up in drama. They're here to do a job and do it well. And they have a lot that life experiences they can share. They're just, I love seeing young people volunteer too, but I really love seeing the seniors come to us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they're giving back, and we appreciate it. It's, again, like our supporters, we could not do it without the volunteers. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it.
And I know that we will be chatting again soon. This is just the beginning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I know no one likes to hear themselves. I'm looking forward to what you do with our other employees, because we've got a lot of superstars here, and I'm interested to see and hear what they have to say.
We really do have a lot of superstars. So I get excited before every interview, because there's just a new road for us to travel down, and more information to get out there. So thank you for your work, and thank you for creating the temperature.
I like that. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
thank you all for tuning in. Make no mistake, this is just the beginning. We will definitely have Scott Delucchi, President and CEO of SPCA Monterey County, back at a later date for more in-depth discussions on a variety of topics. We have so much more to explore. We would love to hear from you. If you have any questions for us, please email us at info@spcamc.org. Please put podcast question in the subject line or something like that so your question can be forwarded to me directly. A huge thank you to all SPCA staff, volunteers, and board of directors, an incredibly supportive, compassionate, kind, and involved group of wonderful and talented people who work tirelessly and endlessly to care for the animals in our community. And a special thank you, of course, to our generous, loving supporters. We at SPCA Monterey County could not do what we do for the animals and people in our community without you, and that includes this podcast. Dawn Fenton here, signing off until next time. Much unconditional love to you and your pets from all of us here at SPCA Monterey County.